Good afternoon. On behalf of Volusia County Schools, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department, our heartfelt thoughts and prayers are ongoing for our neighbors in Broward County that have suffered so much. Everyone in Volusia County wants safe schools, and I need help from parents. I need help in 3 areas. The first is to see something, say something. If a child is at school and they see something, they need to speak to a trusted adult. In the evening, if they have a conversation with a friend or they see something on social media, they need to tell their parents. The second area where I need the help of parents is they need to monitor cell phone activity and social media activity of their student. As parents, they have a right to do this. And the third area, they need to check the backpack. You need to know what your child is taking to school and what they're bringing home. So if they work on see something, say something, monitor cell phone activities and social media, and then also check backpacks, that will help us immensely. I want to be abundantly clear. If a student makes a threat, they will be held accountable. Much like all of Central Florida today, we have had social media threats, all unfounded, and we will not accept that. The purpose of a threat is to instill fear. Fear in students, teachers, administrators, parents, and grandparents. And as a community, we are not going to accept that. And finally, I want to assure our community, and I'm sure that Sheriff Chitwood can verify this, that Volusia County schools have safety and security plans and protocols in place, and we have heightened security at our schools over the last several days. Sheriff?
Thank you, Superintendent. Good afternoon. I think there isn't any of us who are Americans or Floridians who have not been touched once again by this horrific act in Broward County. And as the superintendent said, our #1 goal in law enforcement is to work hand in hand with the school administrators to create a safe environment for our children. None of us want to drive our kid to school and kiss them goodbye and fear what's going to happen the rest of the day when we go to pick them up. But there's a serious thing that has been going on here, in not only in our county in Central Florida, but all over America. And I just want to share what's going on. The aftermath of this tragedy is not the time for jokes, pranks, or fake threats. If you're looking to get a felony arrest on your record, continue with the stupid jokes and the pranks. And if you don't believe it's going to happen, look at what happened today in Heritage Middle School, where a 14-year-old talked about blowing up the school or shooting up the school and ended up in handcuffs and ended up in jail. We are constantly trolling social media for these threats. And guess what? We're smarter than you. We're going to find you. And you're going to find the sheriff and his deputies on your front doorsteps arresting you. So I'm telling the parents now, as the superintendent talked about, check your kid's backpack, look at what your kid's doing on the phone, and don't be surprised if we show up and we're going to make an arrest. We are not taking this lightly. We've had 15 false threats in the past 2 days. And involving in those threats, I have to run out a bomb squad, K-9, all of these resources that go toward a fake threat that are diverted, God forbid, if they were really needed while they're spread out through the rest of the county. We pursue every lead that is given to us as a potential threat. So when you get these hoaxes that come in, they're muddying the waters of where we really need to go. The truth is that law enforcement, as I talked about, we're constantly monitoring these posts, but there are many cases where we identify these idiots. And one of the disconcerting things for us in law enforcement and for school administrators is these morons post themselves on social media with guns. And I will also implore our community at this point in time that over 179 firearms were taken out of unlocked cars in Volusia County in 2017. And a majority of those firearms are being taken by juveniles. when they hit a subdivision and they hit the car door handles, if the car door is open and the gun's in there, those guns are falling into the hands of juveniles. And then those guns, in turn, are being used against the hardworking, honest people of our community. So our message here is really simple. Knock off the pranks, knock off the jokes, so that we're able to do our job. And as you've heard the Sheriff Israel say in Broward County, if you see something, say something. Go to a teacher, go to law enforcement, go to Crime Stoppers. If you think there's a potential threat in our community or your school, report it. Not this nonsense where we're recopying posts from different states. Like last night, we invested a ton of time on a post that came in from South Carolina. Well, originally, we don't know that. But then we investigated and discovered that it originated in South Carolina and was reposted here in Florida. And I think you're going to see some of these tweets that are behind us. This is a difficult time for America. Parents, you really have to talk to your kids. You have to understand what your kids are doing. You have to listen to your kids. And if you get information, direct it to us. But I also need parents to come down hard on their kids, because you don't want to see your kid getting a felony charge that's going to follow them for the rest of their life because they think it's funny to exploit what is going on down in South Florida. You know, I would like to send this 14-year-old and some of the other ones we catch down to South Florida and have them sit in a room with the family members who lost a loved one. I'd like to have them sit there with the family of the teacher who was trying to coach, who was trying to protect his students, and see what's so goddamn funny about that. So with that, Andrew, do you want to since 1999, how many school shootings, how many families are in mourning, how many massacres? I don't know the number, but I know it's an awful lot, and it's not stopping. And every time we have one of these, you turn on the TV, and we have all this lip service, but nobody's got the guts to step forward with a plan. But I'll tell you, there's a plan that's being experimented with in Polk County. And I agree wholeheartedly with Sheriff Judd. And I think in Florida, we can end these shootings. We have 67 counties, you have 66 sheriffs. We have the ability, and I think this should be up for debate, we have the ability to deputize school administrators, coaches, whoever, send them through training, arm them, and let nobody else know they're armed. Because if you take a look at some of our high schools here, you just saw what happened in Broward. You take a look at Spruce Creek, for example, 3,000 plus students. You look at University, 4,000 plus students. Campus is a quarter mile long. If a deputy's in good shape and runs an 8-minute mile, it would take him 2 minutes to get to the scene of a shooting where that person has already fired hundreds of rounds downrange in those 2 minutes. But if we can get past this shock of, well, do we really want to arm people? How many ex-law enforcement officers or teachers? How many ex-military are there? How many teachers do we have who are good citizens that have a concealed firearms permit? It wouldn't cost a lot of money. We train them. They go through 400 or 500 hours of training. They're armed. They're there, and nobody knows except the principal who's armed. That's the only way you're going to stop these guys, because they're going to kill themselves, and the quicker we can put them down, the less carnage that there's going to be. But the debates about mental illness and everything else, we're going to keep debating it, and our children are going to die. And it has to stop. It has to stop, because the problem with American society is we're conditioned that, oh, it's another school shooting again. That's why you have these posts. We have these kids that have grown up in a sense of violence, and they think it's mirth and merriment, and we'll post these things out. But the time to solve the problem is now. There should not be another shooting in America, and if there is, we should be in a position to put down that shooter. When we do active shooter training for churches, I encourage the pastors. Yeah, we taught you how to run, hide, and fight. We told you to hide in the room, turn off your cell phones, don't make any noise, and if God forbid, grab a fire extinguisher and attack a shooter. Well, we tell the pastors, you know who's in your congregation. Arm them. Only you need to know. You only need 4 or 5 guns in that church. If somebody comes in, you know when those 5 guys stand up, everybody else is diving, they're going to take the threat out. And we really need to have a serious conversation, because you're not going to protect your kids passing laws. Pass all the laws in the world, mentally ill people are going to get their hands on guns. An example I just said, there's 179 guns were taken out of unlocked cars, and they get sold on the streets. Nobody does a background check when they're selling them on the streets.
This year, that's since January?
2017.
Chief? Oh, 2017, beg your pardon.
162 car breaks, 179 guns. All of those car breaks, those cars were unlocked. So
Majority.
we can pass all the legislation you want to say if you're mentally ill, you're not gonna get a gun, but if you know Joe the thug, and he says, I'll send you a gun for $20, he ain't doing a background check on you. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there and get all fired up.
Have you charged anyone else for these threats besides the kid at Howard?
Heritage young man is the first one we charged. And last night, as the texts were coming in, I gave the order out that there is no mercy, everybody gets charged. They get charged with a felony. In this climate today, I don't wanna hear about civil citations, I don't wanna hear about anything. If you're that stupid and callous, get locked up.
Sheriff, this idea with deputizing some staff at the schools, is there anything you would have to do to make that happen? Does it have to go through Tallahassee, or is that something?
No, as the county sheriff, and again, I haven't told the superintendent, so it's unfair to spring it on him. That's something the school board would have to vet, but if the school board agreed and said, we want to try this, it could be done. It's just, I can't mandate it, it would be unfair for me, that's why I said, this is a thing to debate. You know, and I'll be honest with you, 10 years ago, when I first became the police chief in Daytona Beach, and this came up, I was kind of reluctant to it. But now, when you watch this happen repeatedly, and I mean, you know, I'll give University High School for an example. I have at least 2 former law enforcement officers who teach there. Same thing in New Smyrna Beach High. They already have the credentials. And like I said, you put them through, and I think Grady Judd, it was a brilliant idea. And he has a pilot program going down here in Polk County. You gotta go through all the training as a regular deputy. You only have authority on the campus, and that authority only goes to if you have a violent felony on campus where somebody's wielding a knife or a gun, and it's active, and you have to take them out. You gotta take them out. Because these guys, I'm surprised this kid was alive. But I guess he wants to share in the glory or whatever he thinks is gonna happen here. But they're gonna continue and kill as many people as they can. The objective is take them out before they get that body count. They're gonna beat us because they know what they're doing. They're gonna have to jump on us. But if we have enough people there that can take them out, lives will be saved.